You're standing at the front of a room. Every face is turned toward you. Your mind, which worked perfectly fine 30 seconds ago, goes completely blank. Your hands don't know where to go. Your voice comes out thinner than you meant it to. You can feel your own heartbeat in your ears. You tell yourself you're just bad at this. But the real answer is far stranger. Your brain isn't malfunctioning when this happens. It's running a program that is hundreds of thousands of years old, built for a world where being watched by a group meant something very different than it does today. Back then, being watched wasn't a performance. It was a verdict. Psychologist Thomas Gilovich at Cornell University spent years studying a strange gap between what people believe others notice about them and what others actually notice. He called it the spotlight effect. In one famous study, he had college students wear an embarrassing t-shirt into a room full of strangers, then ask them to guess how many people noticed the shirt. Students guessed nearly half the room had clocked it. The real number was closer to 1 in 4. Not because people weren't looking, because people weren't looking at you the way you assume they are. Here's the part that should stop you. Your brain doesn't actually know the difference between a room full of strangers glancing at their phones and a group of ancient hunters deciding whether you're still useful to the tribe. To your nervous system, both situations trigger the exact same ancient alarm: being seen, being evaluated, being, potentially, rejected. Gilovich didn't stop at the t-shirt study. In follow-up experiments, he had participants take part in group discussions, then estimate how much other people remembered about what they personally said or did. Again and again, people overestimated their own visibility by wide margins. Not because they were self-obsessed in some shallow way, but because each of us experiences our own mistakes, our own awkward pauses, our own trembling hands, from the inside, in vivid, inescapable detail. Everyone else in the room is having that same experience about themselves, not about you. You are the main character in your own footage. You are, at most, a background extra in everyone else's. For most of human history, rejection wasn't an inconvenience. It was a death sentence. Anthropologists studying small foraging societies have found something consistent across cultures separated by oceans and thousands of years. Humans did not survive as individuals. They survived in groups of maybe 50 to 150 people, and every single person in that group depended on staying inside it. If the group turned against you, exiled you, or simply stopped sharing food and shelter with you, your odds of surviving alone in the wilderness were close to zero. No weapon, no skill, no strength could compensate for losing your place in the tribe. So somewhere deep in your nervous system, a very old rule got written. Being watched by the group is not neutral. Being watched by the group is the moment your value gets measured. And if you fail in front of them, the cost isn't embarrassment. The cost is your life. There's a reason this rule got written so deeply that it survived tens of thousands of generations. The individuals who felt nothing when the group's attention turned toward them, who stayed relaxed and indifferent while being evaluated by the people who controlled their access to food, shelter, and protection, were the ones most likely to say or do something that got them cast out. The individuals who felt a jolt of alarm, who paid close attention to how the group was reacting to them, were the ones who adjusted their behavior in time. Over enough generations, that jolt of alarm wasn't a glitch to be bred out. It was a survival advantage to be reinforced. That rule never got deleted. It just got dropped into a completely different world. Psychologist Robert Zajonc, working in the 1960s, ran a series of experiments that revealed something almost paradoxical about being watched. He found that the presence of others actually improves performance on simple, well-practiced tasks, but makes performance worse on complex or unfamiliar ones. He called this social facilitation and social inhibition. Zajonc discovered that an audience raises what's called physiological arousal, a kind of internal alertness. If a task is easy, that extra alertness sharpens you. If a task is hard or new, that same alertness floods your working memory and shuts down the exact mental flexibility you need. Think about what that means for the moment you freeze in front of a room. It's not that you're incapable. It's that the eyes on you are physiologically amplifying whatever state you were already in. Confident and prepared, an audience can make you sharper. Uncertain and unrehearsed, an audience can make the exact same brain go blank. Zajonc actually tested this on cockroaches before he ever tested it on people. In one experiment, roaches ran a simple straight track faster when other roaches were present, watching from behind a glass wall, but took longer to complete a complex maze under the exact same watching conditions. The presence of others sped up the easy task and slowed down the hard one in an insect with no capacity for social embarrassment whatsoever. That detail matters. It suggests this isn't a uniquely human insecurity. It's a far older biological response to being observed, one that predates language, self-consciousness, and even the concept of an audience as we understand it. But why does it feel so personal? Why does it feel like everyone is specifically watching you fail? Psychologist Roy Baumeister spent decades studying what he called choking under pressure, and he found something counterintuitive. The moment performance falls apart isn't usually the moment someone thinks too little about what they're doing. It's the moment they think too much. Baumeister's research showed that under the pressure of being watched, people shift from fluid, automatic performance into what he called explicit monitoring, consciously tracking every step of a process that used to happen without thinking at all. Try to explain, step by step, exactly how you tie your shoes while doing it in real time, and you'll feel it happen. The task doesn't get harder. Your attention to it gets heavier. Baumeister called this the self-focus trap. The very act of worrying about how you appear to others pulls your attention inward, away from the task itself. And that inward pull is what actually causes the stumble people were afraid of in the first place. So the fear creates the failure. Not the audience. The fear of the audience. Baumeister found this pattern held up, even when the stakes were artificially raised in a lab, far from any real tribal consequence. In one experiment, participants performed a motor skill task, then were offered a cash reward for a strong performance in front of observers. The promise of money and an audience together made performance worse, not better, for the exact people who had been practiced and fluid moments before. The pressure didn't sharpen their focus. It relocated their focus, from the task in front of them to the version of themselves being judged, and that relocation was enough to break something that had been working perfectly well on its own. This is the twist almost nobody talks about. You are not afraid of being watched. You are afraid of being judged and found lacking by a group your ancient brain believes controls whether you live or die. The modern audience, a classroom, a meeting, a stranger's glance across a coffee shop gets processed by the same ancient circuitry built for a tribal council deciding your fate. And here's where it gets even stranger. That circuitry doesn't require an actual audience to activate. Just the belief that you're being watched is often enough. Researchers studying what's called the bystander effect found something related but distinct. In situations where many people are present, individuals often feel less personally responsible, assuming someone else will act. But flip that same crowd around. Put the individual in the position of being observed rather than observing, and the opposite happens. Instead of diffusing responsibility, a crowd concentrates scrutiny. Every added face in the room doesn't spread out the judgment, it stacks it. This is why speaking to one trusted friend rarely triggers the freeze, but speaking to a room full of the exact same kind of people can shut you down completely. Your nervous system isn't counting individuals. It's calculating collective judgment, and the math gets heavier with every additional face. Here's something that might surprise you. This response isn't a flaw unique to anxious people. It's closer to a universal human setting, dialed differently in different people, but present in nearly everyone in some form. Actors describe stage fright before performances they've done hundreds of times. Elite athletes describe the yips, a sudden and unexplainable inability to perform a motion their body has done automatically for years, the instant a crowd's attention concentrates on them. Musicians describe their fingers forgetting a piece they could play in their sleep, the moment a spotlight turns on. These are not signs of weakness. They are signs of a nervous system doing exactly what it evolved to do, treating concentrated group attention as high stakes. So what do you do with a survival system that's reacting to the wrong century? You can't switch it off, because it isn't broken. It's working correctly for a threat that mostly no longer exists. But understanding what it's actually responding to changes your relationship with the freeze. When your mind goes blank in front of a room, that isn't proof you're incapable. It's your body running an ancient calculation about tribal survival in a moment that, statistically, carries almost none of the danger your body assumes it does. The room you're standing in front of today cannot exile you from the only source of food and shelter on Earth. Losing your train of thought in a meeting will not leave you alone against predators in the dark. But your nervous system doesn't know that automatically. It has to be told, consciously, over and over, in the moment it's happening. That's not weakness. That's a translation problem between a threat that used to be real and a room that no longer carries the same stakes. Gilovich's spotlight effect tells you the room is watching you less closely than you fear. Zajonc's research tells you the same arousal that ruins an unfamiliar task can sharpen a practiced one. Baumeister's research tells you the freeze often comes from watching yourself too closely, not from the audience watching you at all. Put those three findings together, and something shifts. The eyes in the room were never really the threat. Your own inward spotlight, turned up to full brightness by a 100,000-year-old survival instinct, was doing most of the damage. So the next time you feel every face in a room turn toward you, and your mind goes quiet in that familiar, frightening way, remember what's actually happening. You're not failing. You're not exposed. You're a person standing at the front of a room, running a program built for a much older, much more dangerous kind of room. You tell yourself you're just bad at this. But the real answer is far stranger and far kinder than that.